An Iranian lawmaker, Khosari, says closure of the Strait of Hormuz is seriously being reviewed by Iran. This would be the definition of a gray swan event or black swan event and could get really bad for markets. We'll discuss that in this video. But the good news is I don't think it's going to happen. But if it does happen, that's really bad. Let's face it. If that happens, that is the end of Iran. The government will no longer exist because the US will be heavily involved. You're talking about gas prices exceeding $10 a gallon at the gas pump. No exaggeration. Could be more, could be higher than that. It would be an economic disaster on the global stage. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Here in this video, we will break down all of your Tesla stock news, including some really big news out of Texas and Tesla's legal standing with robotaxis. It is game time, and what I believe game over for the Bears. Now, beyond that, I do want to share this clip with you from CNBC. It's from Tom McClean. He says, there's a great bull market ahead, but protect yourself now. I hear a lot of this, that we're in for near-term volatility. And what I will tell you is even though you just had pretty much a war breakout in the Middle East with Israel and Iran, and there's even some comments today that Iran's going to start to target American assets in the region. Yeah, that's a big mistake. Markets actually did very well despite all of that news. Markets at one point almost went green. And then you had that end of the day sell-off. Markets recovered a little bit in after hours. I believe the fact of the matter is this. Over the next 6 months, we are going to get many trade deals with tariff rates that are a lot lower than most people think. This is going to drive little to no inflation, which is going to allow the Fed to cut rates. I believe consumers do not easily spend or change their spending habits. I don't think people are changing their spending habits, aka we're probably not going to go into a big economic slowdown later this year, as some people have suggested. So if people think that spending is going to slow down and we're going to have some form of mild recession later this year, I don't think that is going to happen. That is an upside surprise to markets, or will be an upside surprise to markets. I believe once the tax bill is passed, that is going to give greater clarity, although it will add to the deficit. There's a lot of positives that go along with that. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, could really help push, 60, 70, 80 million Americans out of a recession. This has been an inflationary induced recession in lower income consumers. I think that could actually be a big deal that Wall Street is really overlooking right now. I believe on top of that, AI is going to continue to be in focus. I think we could have something that looks like an AI bubble, although I don't think it's going to be a bubble. I think it's going to be more like AI euphoria. It's going to be one of those situations where AI is just growing so fast that people are allocating a lot of capital to AI sectors. Think about it like this. You have, let's call it a company like Dollar General, or the next healthcare name that is growing at 5 to 7% a year. Like, that's great. Earnings are maybe growing 10, 15%. That's awesome. But then you're going to have AI stocks that are growing at 30 to 100% a year. People are going to invest in those names. And I think Tesla is perfectly positioned because people are very bearish on Tesla. They're underweight on Tesla. And now Tesla is really going to flex its AI muscle over the next 6 months. especially I believe with Optimus, you're going to see a lot of improvements if Tesla's prior guidance for shipments of Optimus to be sold next year actually come true. By the end of this year, we're going to be pricing that in. We're going to be looking ahead towards that. So I do see an outlook where the economy is not going to be as weak as people think. Earnings are probably going to come in better than people think. We're not going to have inflation, which is going to lead to many rate cuts in the back half of this year, and a consumer that potentially starts to get out of recessionary dynamics they have been in the last 3.5 years. With a focus on AI, I think we could see a very strong market over the next 6 months. You've heard this quote before, but stocks need a wall of worry to move higher. Again, in simplest terms, if you think, there's all these problems ahead, and then next thing you know, there's no problems, then you can move higher. Okay? If you're expecting things to be great and then there's issues, well, that's a problem. Or you can kind of think about it like this. If everyone's expecting something bad to happen over the weekend and stocks to sell off on Monday, well, if nothing happens, even just nothing, like nothing good, nothing bad, that all of a sudden is a positive catalyst for markets. You need a wall of worry, and there is a lot of people that are out there worried. As I've talked about before, the real action doesn't start until you hit a new all-time high. That's where the chase really starts. That's where the bears start to capitulate and throw in the towel, because one all-time high tends to lead to many new all-time highs. Whereas, we're going to see maybe a little bit more volatility up and down trading in this range right before we hit new all-time highs. But once you hit those new all-time highs, that is the green light for a larger rally in my view. Now, enough of the rant. Let's get started with your Tesla stock news. Tesla on the new Model S and Model X RGB ambient lighting says, quote, hidden until lit. Once lit, the metallic coated allows light to crisply shine through. Full spectrum color lighting also extends to the footwells, consoles, door pockets, under seat zones, and more. TCI Transportation posted this. TCI is excited to announce a new partnership with Novoya, a leading zero-emissions electric trucking carrier and technology-driven logistics platform. TCI will lease 5 Tesla semis to support their fleet expansion and help meet growing demand for zero-emissions transportation. This is the big news today. Tesla has just officially been added to Texas Department of Transportation's automated vehicle deployment website. Filter by Tesla under company to track robotaxi live. Company is Tesla. Description, rideshare service. Safety driver is listed at no. Status is active. Status in Texas is testing. And again, the description is ride share service. The service area is the Austin metro region. Sawyer Merritt says yesterday he drove his Model Y and FSD V13.2.9 for 65 miles in heavy sun glare, both on and off the highway in light and heavy traffic with no issues or interventions. The glare, which was much worse in person than it looks on video, just sharing, since some say that Tesla's FSD can't handle the blinding sun. And yeah, we all know what that was like. It's nothing worse than just having sun right in your face. Now, option activity for the entire day yesterday from hedge funds and institutions came in pretty damn positive. You had 246 different trades totaling $204.5 million with a positive order value of 79%. Total volume for next Friday's expiration is 52.3% calls and 47.7% puts. So kind of neutral with a slight bullish skew attached to it. Now, short sellers on Friday actually covered 3.35 million shares. Yeah, once Tesla dipped to that low of the day around 313, it was like a wave of shorts coming in and covering on those short positions. They do not want to be short in Tesla stock right now, which makes sense as we are launching the robotaxi network. Now, short interest of free float sits at 2.75%. $24.62 billion sold short in Tesla, totaling 77.15 million shares. So there's a lot of dry powder, if you will, on the sidelines. And yeah, eventually I do think those shorts are going to get squeezed on those short positions. And ultimately, who knows when that happens on the exact date, but I do think it will be over the next month or two. Now, Israel says if Iran fires additional missiles, Tehran will be destroyed. An Iranian lawmaker, Khossari, says closure of the Strait of Hormuz is seriously being reviewed by Iran. This would be the end of Iran. Okay. This would force America to get involved, like a more boots on the ground potential situation. This would be really bad because the Strait of Hormuz has 20 to 30% of daily oil supply that flows through it. It's just a little choke point by Iran. It's got, Iraq, Kuwait, UAE, a lot of Saudi Arabia's oil flows through there. If that were to be choked off, yeah, you would see oil hit highs you've never seen before. That would risk the global economy. That would be a really bad situation. Okay? This is the only thing that matters with this Iran conflict. If Iran were to try to close this strait off, it would be the end of Iran. It would force America's heavy involvement, and it would not be good for markets because of the impact on the economy. Now, Iran said earlier today that the United States assets in the region will be struck over the coming days, and Iraq is requesting Iran not to target United States assets on Iraqi territory. U.S. Defense Secretary Hegseth says Iran shifting focus to the United States would be a bad idea. Hegseth says Trump prefers peace. Iran still has an option for it. And Iran has canceled Sunday nuclear talks with the United States. And here is that headline. It says Iran says that conflict will spread in coming days to U.S. bases in the region. Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu says Israel will strike every site and every target of the Iranian regime. And it looks like Israel has struck an energy infrastructure site, South Gas Pars Field, which is reportedly burning. Now, take a listen to this clip on CNBC from Tom here that says there's a great bull market ahead, but protect yourself now.
Take a look at global and domestic risk right now for the markets. Samir Samana joins us. He's head of global equities and real assets at Wells Fargo Investment Management. And Tom McClellan is here on set with me, editor of the McClellan Market Report. Welcome to both of you. Tom, you've obviously been through a number of these skirmishes over the years. So what would you tell investors?
The recent days in the stock market have seen very quiet action, what we would call coiling, and it's quietness that should make you nervous because when the market gets quiet, that's usually a sign of a top, and so this is the triggering event that finally breaks things loose. It triggers the avalanche to finally let go of all that pressure that's been building up.
Yeah, you make a very similar analogy to what Ed Yardeni said on air, I think on Monday, when he said, my biggest concern is there's nothing left to worry about. We had actually come all the way back from that April sell-off to say tariffs, that's kind of on the back burner, inflation, the economy, everything was kind of moving in the right direction. And now, obviously, we introduce a new element to the wall of worry.
And it's an unknown element because we don't know what this means because we haven't been through this all that often. And so if you get an earnings report, okay, we know how to interpret an earnings report, but we don't know how to interpret nuclear strikes against nuclear facilities because they've only happened about 3 or 4 other times. And so most people haven't lived through that. And this is just as we didn't know how to live through the tariff announcements on Liberation Day. Everybody freaked out because they didn't know what this was all about. They have a new thing that they don't know what it's all about. But this is all part of a larger cycle. We're supposed to have a down month in the month of June just for normal seasonality ahead of the July seasonal top. But there's longer cycles that say that this is supposed to be a bear market year. 26 is supposed to be a great bull market year, and I'm looking forward to a great bull market. Just not yet.
Maybe so sell in June, I guess, and wait till 26 or something like that. But because you have had such experience throughout these conflicts, but you also are always looking at kind of the technicals and the large. So that's the setup that you foresee as a market that will continue to weaken?
Yes, and the troubling thing is that we've seen strong breadth numbers. The New York Stock Exchange advanced decline line is possibly the best indicator of liquidity, and it's made new all-time highs, which normally that's a really bullish thing. Gobs of liquidity is a wonderful thing. But we've seen this scenario before. We saw it in 2015 after the first bottom, and you had even had a Zweig breadth thrust in 2015 that signaled, hey, everything's happening great, and it did happen great, but only after a retest. We also saw this in August of 2022. Strong breadth on a counter trend rally fooled a lot of people into saying that there's a new uptrend starting, and one did, but only after a retest of the low. And so I'm expecting the similar scenario to play out this year. There's going to be a great bull market coming. It's just not coming here yet, and there's some protection you need to do in the meantime.
You know, honestly, I see this everywhere. People are nervous. They're scared. And, you know, can we get some volatility? Of course. But it's going to be very difficult to retest the lows or get any kind of serious drawdown. Again, if the Strait of Hormuz were to be cut off, even temporarily, yeah, that would be a major problem. Imagine if gas were to go to like $10 a gallon. That's what you're looking at, right? That would be like the only catalyst I could see at this point that would be logical to send markets down to retest the lows again. So that's what you should probably be paying attention to. They haven't, the fact that they even talked about it over this weekend could be a little troubling. But I'll keep you guys up to date on any new developments. Let me know your thoughts on this down below in the comment section. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.